The Newsday continues here on One News Now. I'm Sean Yao. Volcanoes in the country are now no-fly zones. Mounts Mayon and Taal, particularly, are exhibiting more signs of unrest. Let's talk to an expert about this. We have with us this afternoon FIVOLCS Director, Mr. Teresito Bacolcol. Sir Teresito, what is the latest on these two volcanoes?
Good afternoon. Mayon Volcano, since yesterday until 5 a.m. this morning, we were able to detect 74 raffle events.
Yes, hello, sir. Hi.
Yes. Yes. And for Taal Volcano, yesterday we were able to measure 9,000 around 9,391 tons per day of sulfur dioxide emission.
All right, let's focus first on Mount Mayon. Sir, what are the chances that Mount Mayon will erupt again? It was not too long ago, just some years ago before the pandemic, when it erupted, and people are now afraid that this is going to happen again. Is this possible in the near future?
Well, the big difference right now is that we do not see a high emission of sulfur dioxide. Mayon usually emits a high amount of sulfur dioxide, and in fact, its background level would be 500 tons per day. But now, we only have 200 tons per day. And most of its eruption, there is a steep pronounced increase in sulfur dioxide emission. So we are not really expecting a rapid escalation of the activity. But then again, anything can happen. We might have a sudden influx of magma from the volcano, from beneath the volcano, and would rise rapidly. So it's really difficult to say.
Okay.
We really need to observe the volcano 24/7.
All right, Mr. Bacolcol, you mentioned sulfur dioxide emissions. Now, while that is not yet alarming over at the Mayon volcano, it could be a problem over at the Taal volcano. I think yesterday we were speaking to another volcanologist, and he said that yesterday in Taal, it was recorded that the sulfur dioxide emissions reached 9,000 tons, and it was averaging some 5,800 tons over the last few days. Is the Taal volcano expected to erupt again?
This is an indication that Taal volcano would erupt, and it does not also indicate that we need to raise alert level from alert level 1 to alert level 2. There are other parameters that we are looking at before we raise the alert level to 2. One would be the increase in seismicity. Another is if the volcano is inflated, among others. So if there is a significant increase of the monitored parameters, then we might increase it to alert level 2. If not, if there is a decrease in the monitored parameters, then we can always lower this to alert level 0.
All right. Well, at this point, sir, we would like to check in on Mount Canlaon. How is that doing? And are you noticing any increased activity over at the Canlaon volcano?
Yesterday, we were able to measure 1,089 tons per day of sulfur dioxide emission. So this is quite higher than the normal. Usually, Canlaon volcano will emit 200 to 600 tons per day of sulfur dioxide. So 1,089 is quite high for Canlaon volcano.
All right. One last question, sir, before we let you go. Would all these increased activities over at the different volcanoes, of course, we have one middle of Luzon, one is in southern Luzon, the other one in the Visayas. Would these all be related or interconnected in any way?
Not at all. One volcano is independent of another volcano. So their activities are not at all related.
All right, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. FIVOLCS Director Teresito Bacolcol over the phone. Thank you, sir. Moving on now to another story. The massive fire that gutted the Manila Central Post Office last month was deemed an accident. The Bureau of Fire Protection traced the cause of the blaze to a car battery that exploded in the basement of the building. The battery had self-discharged and overheated, igniting highly flammable materials inside the historic structure.
Sa laging po wala naman po tayo nakikita nga ganong angle, no, na ito ay incendiary o sinadya yung tunog. Isang stored, no, na lumang car battery exploded and caused to ignite doon sa mga malalapit na mga materials. Meron kami na-identify doon ng mga paint of thinner, paint cans, and then may mga different documents, sari-sari ng materials doon.
The Philippine Postal Corporation says it has already received a copy of the BFP's report and has started processing insurance claims to restore the post office. Damage from the 30-hour fire has been pegged at around 300 million pesos.
Currently, we are working on with the GSIS para naman po doon sa ating mga gagawing claims for our insurance. Patuloy po tayong nakikipagtulungan sa mga cultural agencies para po doon sa restoration na gagawin po natin para po doon sa Manila Central Post Office Building.
We have more stories for you after this quick break. Keep it here on One News. You're still watching One News Now. I'm Sean Yao. Consumer prices continued to cool down in May, with last month's inflation clocking in at 6.1%. The decline in inflation was mainly due to slower movement in the prices of food and transport fares. The 6.1% inflation print for May falls within the 5.8 to 6.6% forecast range of the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. This is the fourth straight month that inflation dipped from a peak of 8.7% in January.
Ang nakikita namin trend is that it's on the downward trend, no. However, of course may mga risks pa rin tayo while the major contributors before in the increase sa inflation ay nag-reverse na yung trend. There are still risks. Of course, one is really on the food items, no.
The National Economic Development Authority, or NEDA, is confident that the country can achieve the government's inflation target this year. And the Social Welfare Department assures that the proposed food stamp program will not be abused. DSWD Undersecretary Edu Punay says that measures will be in place so that the assistance or ayuda will be used for its intended purpose. Under the food stamp program, beneficiaries will be required to join government job-generating programs in exchange for 3,000 pesos worth of food stamps.
Isang meal lang po ang sasagutin ng pamahalaan for these families, isang meal a day. Hindi po natin siyempre sasagutin ang 3 meals a day. Ayun na naman yung culture of dependency na gusto nga nating sanang tanggalin. Hindi po tayo cash ang ating cash basis ang ating grants, kundi food credits. We will be using a system where we are utilizing the biometrics for our beneficiaries So paggamit po nila ng top card, ng EBT card, kasama po doon yung biometrics. Meron pong thumb mark, fingerprint, bago nila makuha yung kanilang benefits. Kaya hindi po pwedeng transferable po ito.
Let's now take a quick look at today's other top stories. President Bongbong Marcos has named Gilbert Teodoro as the new Secretary of Defense. He is replacing Senior Undersecretary Carlito Galvez Jr., who has been handling the job as officer in charge. Teodoro is not new to the position, having been appointed Defense Secretary by former President Gloria Macapagal Arroyo. Subsequently, Marcos has appointed Dr. Ted Herbosa as the new Health Chief, replacing Officer in Charge Maria Rosario Vergere. Herbosa has been an undersecretary in the agency from 2010 to 2015. He has also served as a special advisor of the government's National Task Force against COVID-19. On to the weather now. Pag-asa says that Tropical Depression Chindeng will not be as strong as Typhoon Betty, despite having similar forecast tracks. Pag-asa noted that Betty became a super typhoon outside of the Philippine area of responsibility, as opposed to Chindeng, which developed as a tropical depression inside the PAR. Heavy rains are still expected due to the southwest monsoon or habagat. One News Now will be back at 5:30 p.m. I'm Sean Yao. We are One News.